Welcome to this webinar on Get Started with Microsoft Power Apps. I'm Ashvini Webster, and today we will be exploring the basics of Power Apps. In this webinar, we'll begin with an introduction to Microsoft Power Apps, covering its basics and its role in the Power Platform, including an overview of Canvas apps and model-driven apps. We'll then move on to designing and customizing apps using the Power Apps interface, with examples of app creation starting from SharePoint and templates. Next, we'll explore how to connect these apps to various data sources like SharePoint, OneDrive, and Excel. We'll also discuss best practices for implementing intuitive, user-friendly interfaces. Finally, we'll cover adding automation to your apps with Power Automate and publishing them to shared workspaces in SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. This session will provide a comprehensive foundation for effectively using Power Apps.
One of the first and most intuitive places to create a Power App is directly from SharePoint. So we'll start in a SharePoint site. Here, I have a list, specifically, a calls list in my Alpha Project team site. This list contains basic information, such as the caller and the result of the call. To create a Power App from this SharePoint list, I go to the command bar at the top of the screen. From there, I click on the three dots on the right side, hover over Integrate, and then select Power Apps. The first option available is to customize a form. This allows us to modify the form that users will fill out within this SharePoint list, effectively creating a connection between the SharePoint list and Power Apps. Once the connection is made, we're presented with a basic form screen. While this form can be customized further, there's also the option to create more interactive and user-friendly interfaces, which we'll explore later in our session. Traditionally, editing forms directly from a SharePoint list was the norm, often using other tools within the Microsoft suite. However, Power Apps now offers a more robust and flexible way to enhance these forms. Next, I'll return to my SharePoint list. Instead of merely editing the form, I'll create an app directly from the list. When I do this, Power Apps generates a fully functional app with multiple screens and navigation options. This app will include default features such as creating new items, viewing the list, and editing existing items. Once the app is created, I can preview it to see how it functions, or I can choose to skip the preview. Since we started from the SharePoint list, the process seamlessly transitions us into the design interface, where we can further customize and refine the app. In Power Apps, you will notice a command bar at the top of the screen. On the left side, you will find most of the commands needed to edit the app you are working on. On the far right, there is an Edit button, along with other tools that help you prepare the app for publishing to your users. One of the key options available is to test the app using the play button. You can also press F5 on your keyboard to enter preview mode, allowing you to see how the app will function before publishing. At this point, when I view an item, there is an arrow that, according to the screen tip, allows me to view the item details. Once inside an item, I can see a pencil icon at the top, which is the Edit tool, also indicated by a screen tip. Additionally, I have options to delete the item or use the back button to return to the previous screen. Each button provides a screen tip when hovered over, making it easy to understand their functions. To create a new item in the list, I can use the provided options to fill out the necessary fields. Once the items are filled out, I can go back to the command bar at the top and click Submit to add the item to our list. At this point, I will exit the preview mode. What we have done so far is successfully created a Power App from a SharePoint list. Next, I will return to SharePoint to consider other options. First, I will save the app, naming it Calls List App. The app is saved directly to the SharePoint site where it was created. After saving, I will select the back button. Even then, I am prompted to confirm if I want to leave the app. I will confirm that I am sure and proceed to exit. Now, I am back at the Power Apps home screen. Another way to explore the connection with SharePoint is by focusing on creating a user-friendly, intuitive interface that does not leave users with questions. For example, I have another team that needs an app for a Project Hub site. This app, called Asset Manager, is designed for users who need to fill out information in remote locations. To make this easy, we have provided a mobile app through Teams, which allows them to access and work with the necessary content. In this site, I have an Asset Manager list. To add a new item, I simply select the New Item button at the top of the list, which brings up a form. As we saw before, this form can be edited as needed. Next, I go back into the app itself. From the command bar at the top, I select the 3 dots and hover over Integrate, and then select Power Apps, and then select Create an App. As we saw before, Power Apps begins the process of creating the app by establishing a connection between SharePoint and Power Apps. While it makes this connection, it also automatically generates the necessary screens for the app. Now that my app is created, I can preview it from here. I would like to highlight that this app is intended for mobile device access. When previewing the app, one of the options is to view how it looks on different device sizes, like tablet screens, phone screens, and even a browser view. After reviewing, I will close out of the app and save it. Since the app does not have a name yet, I will name it Mobile Asset Manager App before saving. At this point, the app is ready, and I could proceed to create an app in 2 other ways if needed. The next way I'll create an app is by returning to the Power Apps home screen. I will leave the current app and confirm that I am okay with leaving. From the Power Apps home screen, I have the option to create a new app by selecting the Create button. In the next section, we will discuss the various connections available at the top of the page. If I scroll down a bit, I can see some AI options, many of which are still in preview. Toward the bottom, there are also templates available. These templates indicate whether they are for model-driven apps or Canvas apps. A Canvas app is a type of app where you have complete control over the app's layout and design, allowing you to build a highly customized user interface by dragging and dropping elements onto a blank canvas. You start with data sources like Excel or SharePoint and design the app based on your specific needs. They can be stored in SharePoint or OneDrive. A model-driven app, on the other hand, is built on top of your data model within Microsoft Dataverse, focusing on the data and processes. It automatically generates a responsive app based on the data structure and relationships you define, providing a more standardized and streamlined user experience with less emphasis on custom design. Model-driven apps may also involve additional licensed features. To explore this, I will start with a Canvas app. I will choose the Book a Room template. After selecting the template, I will name the app and choose whether it is designed for a tablet or a phone, depending on the interface size needed. Since mobile apps are popular, I will opt for the phone interface. I'll name the app Rent a Room, as I am a remote employee who often needs to rent space in different locations. I will proceed to create the app using this template. The app needs to establish connections, specifically through Outlook and my Office 365 profile. This profile follows me across all Microsoft 365 services, so I will allow these connections. Once the connections are made, I have a multi-screen app. In the Tree View section on the far left, I can see that the app contains multiple screens, all of which seem to work together seamlessly. To start, I will preview the app by pressing F5 on my keyboard, which allows me to see how the app functions. In the app, I can choose to book a room for an existing meeting, or book one without a meeting. I use the date picker to select when I want to book. Check if the day is free, and then click Book Now. Available rooms are displayed for selection. If I go back, I can choose to book a room for an existing meeting again and review the other available options. It is important to explore all the features thoroughly and test everything to see if any customization of the template is needed. To exit the app, I can simply press Escape on my keyboard. Once I have the app, there are additional customization options available in the Power Apps toolbar at the top. When creating an app from a template, the screens are predefined. However, there is an option to change the theme, background colours, and even add images like our logo. These are basic customizations I can apply to make the app more personalised. When I save the app, since it already has a name, it saves automatically. By default, it is saved to my OneDrive in the App folder, which is the default location for Power Apps. Now, I have all 3 apps that I have created saved. I will go back, and as I mentioned earlier, I can leave safely once I have confirmed that the app is saved. Power Apps also includes a feature powered by AI called Power Apps Ideas, or Copilot, where you simply describe the app you want to build, and it automatically generates the app for you, including forms, data connections, and basic functionality, making it easier to get started without needing extensive technical skills. Let us test that option. I will describe the app in the provided field. I will call it a praise app with the following features: a praise title text column, an automatic ID field starting at 101, a date column, a user praised person column, and a choice column that allows users to select from a list of happy icons. Then I click the paper airplane button or press enter on my keyboard. The interface then creates the app for me. If anything is not created correctly, I can use the Copilot prompt on the right, assuming I have the proper license, to help fix any issues. At this point, it looks like the basics are in place, including the icons I wanted. I will proceed by clicking Create at the bottom right of the Power Apps design interface. This will generate the app, which will include at least one screen and options for users to create and view items in the list. Once again, Power Apps is creating the full app for me. Next, I review the app that has been created. I have already seen the table, and now I can play the app to test how a user will interact with it, keeping user interactivity in mind. When I go to New, I can create a new item. The praise title field is required, and I can select a happy icon. In the toolbar at the top, there is a check mark that I click to add the new item. I can also select an existing item in the list and edit it. In the toolbar, there is a pencil icon for editing. By selecting it, I can modify the item. After testing, I will close out of the preview and save the app, naming it My Colleague Praise App. At this point, I will explore a few customizations. First, if I look at the toolbar at the top, I can see theme options, allowing me to choose from different themes. Additionally, there are edit options for the background, where I can change it to a custom colour if desired. For now, I will stick with the standard colours, but I will select a dark background so we can see the contrast. This app that was created is a Canvas app, and it was designed for tablet use rather than as a mobile phone app. Next, I am going to customize the app by adding our logo. To do this, I will go to the Insert menu. First, I will deselect everything to ensure I do not accidentally change the wrong element. Then, I will go to Insert again, select the Media section and choose Image. I can then select the image, resize it and make any necessary edits. I have a few options here. I can use existing media already loaded in the app, choose from stock images, or upload a new one. In this case, I will upload our logo. Once the logo is added, I will place it on any screen or field I choose. After adding the logo, I will save the app and then go back. Next, we'll explore connecting to a data source in more depth. While we've already touched on basic connections, now we'll dive a bit deeper into this topic. From the Power Apps home screen, I start by going to Create at the top to connect to various data sources. We have free connections to Dataverse, SharePoint, Excel, and OneDrive for Business. We can also connect to sources like SQL, Images, and Figma. Scrolling to the bottom of the list and selecting More Data Sources reveals additional connection options. By selecting New Connection at the top of the list, I can view all available sources, including some that require an additional license or are in preview mode. The quickest connections to make are with SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, often sufficient for using many available templates. To show you existing connections, I'll go back to More Data Sources, where you'll see connections I've already made, like SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. Other connections, such as SQL or Dataverse, may require a pay-as-you-go plan, charging based on usage. Here, I have connections to both OneDrive for Business and SharePoint. If I select one of these connections, it is based on my user account and what I am connected to. For example, if I select a site, such as an engineering project site, I can then access and connect to any list within that site, like a progress tracker list. After choosing the connection, I click the Connect button at the bottom right of the interface. Power Apps then verifies the connection and checks my permissions. This process is the opposite of what we did earlier. Instead of starting from a SharePoint list and integrating with Power Apps, we are now starting from Power Apps and connecting out to a SharePoint site and list. Once again, the app is being created, specifically, a 3-screen app by default in the phone layout. It has a direct connection to the data source, so any additions to the list are reflected in the corresponding site. These connections work just like the ones we have set up in the other apps we have created so far. On the far left, there is the Tree View section where I can see the app's screens. Next to that is the navigation pane, and below that there is an Insert option, similar to the one in the toolbar. I can also add data by selecting the cylinder icon. In addition, there is a Media section where I can add logos or other images. By going to Media, I can upload or use stock images to be placed on any screen within the app. This is where I manage all media files for use in the app. At this point, I am not going to save the app in my OneDrive yet. If I need to access files from OneDrive, I will go to More Data Sources and point to my OneDrive. In my OneDrive, I locate the file I need. In this case, it is an employee list file stored in my M drive. Although I could have named the tables, I know the one I need is Table 3, so I select it. Then, I click the Connect button at the bottom right of the interface within the Power Apps Design tool to establish the connection. The connection is established, and Power Apps recognises the fields, whether they are text fields, date fields, or other types. Now, I have my app, which is similar to the ones we have created before. When I play the app, I can see what has been created. If I add an item, the relevant fields from my employee list are displayed, which makes sense. After adding an item, I can close out of that screen and edit the item just as we did in the other apps. Additionally, at the top right of the preview screen, there is an option to view the app in different screen sizes, allowing me to see how it will look on various devices. I will close out of the app now, and with the app created, I can go ahead and save it. When I click the Save button, the app is initially named App by default. I will rename it to HR Employee List App and then save it. You will notice at the top that the table is named Table 3, which was the name of the table in the Excel worksheet I used. If I select the table, a Properties panel appears on the far right side. Another way to modify names and properties is through the formula bar. On the left side of the formula bar, there is a selector that lets us choose different fields and properties to edit. While syntax can be important and sometimes requires more than a basic understanding, renaming Table 3 is straightforward. I can easily rename. I'll rename it to Employee List. And now you can see it has updated on the screen. Additionally, if you have Copilot, it is always available to help enhance the app or provide suggestions. After making changes, I will save the app again. At this point, we have successfully connected to data sources. Next, we'll focus on implementing a user-friendly interface. While we've integrated user-friendly elements during app creation, it's time to intentionally refine the design. This means not just making the interface visually appealing, but also ensuring it's intuitive and easy to navigate. The goal is to create a space where users can effortlessly create new items, search for existing ones, and complete tasks with ease. Prioritizing clarity and simplicity will enhance the overall user experience, making the app both functional and accessible. The first apps we looked at are basic phone apps that were created for us. If I examine the icons in the app, I will start by selecting the plus icon at the top of the app form. In the command bar, there is a field called OnSelect. When this icon is selected, it triggers an action that opens the edit form, navigates to the edit screen, and performs a screen transition. This sequence follows a basic syntax or formula that is commonly used in app development. Next, it is important to consider adding help or help text for users. This is another useful feature in Power Apps. For example, if I want to see what a button does, I can preview the app and view the screen tip text. This leads to thinking about what else my users might need to easily add items to the list. Is the interface clear enough? Do the buttons need to be bigger? These are basic formatting options that can be adjusted, most of which are found in the Properties panel. With that in mind, I will go ahead and close out of this app To create a user-friendly and intuitive Power App, it is essential to follow some key best practices. First, ensure clear system status updates, so users are always aware of what is happening. Use familiar language and maintain user control and consistency throughout the app. Consistency is crucial for a seamless experience. Prioritize error prevention by thoroughly testing the app and making sure it functions correctly. Options should be visible and easy to find, allowing users to complete forms effortlessly. Flexibility in design is also important. Being adaptable ensures the app meets various user needs. Embrace a minimalist design approach. In this case, less is often more. Effective error handling is another vital component. If an error occurs, there should be a clear process for managing it. Additionally, provide helpful documentation to support users. Consider offering a lunch and learn training session to introduce new processes, such as creating items in a list or requesting assets through the app. Now that we've covered these fundamental topics, let's move on to exploring the automation features in Power Apps. We will add automation to our apps and then publish them to shared workspaces. To begin, I will return to the Power Apps home screen. By selecting My Apps in the left navigation, I can see all the apps I have created. I will review a couple of these apps to explore the automation steps we can implement. When I am in the Apps section, simply clicking on an app opens it in preview mode. If I select the checkbox next to an app, a toolbar appears at the top, showing various commands I can use, including Edit. If I hover over an app, a pencil icon appears, which is also the Edit button. There is a play button and an ellipsis, which acts like a right-click menu. Through this menu, I can edit the app, either in the same tab or a new tab, play it, share it, export it, wrap it, access its details, adjust settings, or delete it. At this point, if I select Edit, I will return to the app. Once the app opens, I look at the navigation panel to the left of the TreeView task pane. Here, alongside options like Insert, Data Source, and Media, you will find the Next button, a chevron icon that represents Power Automate. When I am working within an app, any tools I use will directly impact that app. If I select Power Automate, I have two options for creating a flow. I can either add an existing flow or create a new one. I will choose to create a new flow, and I will start by adding the first step. Let us create a flow that adds an item to SharePoint and sends an email. When I select the flow, I will name it based on its function. I will call it Praise App Flow. Similar to Power Apps, Power Automate requires connections to data sources. For this flow, I will need permissions in both SharePoint and Outlook. After setting this up, I click Next, which shows me what the flow will do. This flow will add a new item to the SharePoint list and send an email when a button or link in the Power App is selected. Once the flow is created, I can hover over it to see its details. I can select the 3 dots to go back and edit the flow if needed. Now I am in the workflow. When I select the items, it will create an item based on the Power Apps app we created. The workflow will add the item to the list and then send an email to the specified recipient. If I want to customize this further, I can do so. By selecting the dialog box, I have the option to add more details. If I click on See More, I can add additional information to the email body, such as the site address or other relevant details. After saving the workflow, I can run the flow checker to identify any errors in the workflow, similar to how we can test an app. Once that has been done, I will close out of the workflow. As we add items, the workflow will automatically be applied. Now, I will move on to another app. Since this current app is already saved, I will select Back and confirm that it is safe to leave the app. I will go to my Rent-A-Room app and edit the workflow so we can explore the options available in the ribbon or command bar. Here, I can choose to edit the workflow, and there is also an option to edit it in a new tab, though this can result in having quite a few tabs open. Additionally, there is an export option. It is also helpful to understand that there is a details section for this app. We will review that information as we decide where to publish the app. To start, I will go to my Rent-A-Room app, which I created from a template. Once I am in the app, I will navigate to the tree view and select Power Automate. Here, I can create a flow, such as sending an approval. I can also explore other available templates. There are plenty of options. For example, I can add an item to SharePoint and then send an adaptive card in Teams, send an email from a button in Power Apps, or send a push notification. There is also a search bar at the top of the interface. I will select the Send Approval and Follow Up in Teams option to proceed. I'll name the flow Rent-A-Room Workflow. The apps that require permissions for approvals and Teams are listed here, and those connections are checked. When I select Next, it will set up the flow for me. And here in the flow, the content that the flow will pull in is the title, the email address of the approver, and then the requester email address. If I want to add more details, I can using the dynamic content. I'm fine with how everything looks, and I create my flow. I can always come back to edit the flow and add more details if needed. When I hover over my flow, I can see that it is an instant flow, which means it will run when a new item is added and that it is currently active. And again, I can edit and see the steps. the condition is set. If the response is approve, an adaptive card is posted in the chat or channel to specify the approval. If the response is not approve, a different adaptive card is posted to indicate that the request was not approved. This is exactly what is needed. In the details section, I can review my workflow. After checking it, I will save it again. Now I have created 2 workflows. The next step is to publish the app, which involves 3 key steps. First, we save the app to ensure all changes are preserved and the app is ready for distribution. Next, we share the app with the relevant group of users who need to access it. Depending on the app's purpose, this could mean sharing it with the entire organisation. And the final step is we publish the app to a cloud location where it can be easily accessed by the intended users. Common destinations for publishing include a SharePoint site or a Teams tab, where the app can be integrated into existing workflows and collaboration spaces. I should also run the app checker to identify any potential issues. The app checker highlights things that may or may not impact the app's functionality. It is crucial to pay attention to accessibility, ensuring that users who rely on screen readers or screen tips can use the app successfully. It is important to review these details carefully, as some issues may require attention. Another important feature is the ability to monitor our app. This allows us to analyse usage, observe how people interact with the app, and track performance in real time. By doing so, we can quickly identify and address any issues that arise. The next step is to click the Share button, which is located in the ribbon. When sharing the app, I can tailor it to my needs. First, I can add a co-owner, giving someone else the ability to manage the app. There is also an option to enter a name, email address, or even everyone if I want to share the app broadly. There may be specific reasons for sharing the app with everyone in the organisation. This one is the Rent a Room app. If this is for a company, then all employees will need to have access to the app to secure a room for a meeting. As we have seen when viewing the app, it will let them know if the room is already reserved or if it is available. This could be an assets list, like a checkout list for equipment, which might be shared with everyone. In this case, I would share it with everyone in my organisation and ensure that the necessary permissions are set. If I add another user, I can make them a co-owner, which is a best practice to ensure there is always someone available to provide support if needed. We can also add an image. There is an option to send an email, but I do not have to send it to everyone, though I can if I choose. Some companies block emails when using the Everyone option. Typically, apps shared with everyone are included in a company-wide announcement or news article with a link to the app. At this point, the app is unknown to others, and until I share it in a public location, no one will know it exists. Once shared, I just need to ensure that everyone has the necessary permissions. Now, I have navigated to the details of the app. To access this, I go to Apps in the left navigation and select the 3 dots next to an app, then choose Details. This brings up multiple tabs with useful information about the app. One of the key things to note is the information provided on the Details page for when and where we publish the app. First, there is a web link, an app ID, and even a QR code. 3 different ways to give someone access to the app or publish it. We have already saved and shared the app. The next step is to publish it to a location. In the Versions section, we can also view version history. Like other files saved to the cloud, this app has different versions, and I can see which one is the live or published version. I can also restore a version if needed, which is a great safety net. I can also review the connections that were set up when I created the app, including any flows that were added. The Flows tab is used to manage and integrate automation workflows created with Power Automate that are associated with your app. Additionally, there is an Analytics tab, which tracks the app's performance. You will be able to see how people are interacting with the app and ensure that is as you had intended. Since this is a new app, there won't be any analytics data to report yet. Additionally, if I go back to the Details page, I can see an export option in the ribbon. By selecting Export, I can export the app, which allows it to be used in a different environment within our tenant. This is particularly useful for scenarios where we have separate production and development environments. By exporting the app from one environment and importing it into another, we can easily move our apps between these environments while maintaining their functionality and settings. Another useful feature is the Save As option, which allows us to save the app under a different file name. This is particularly handy when we are editing the app and want to create a backup or a new version without overwriting the original. It ensures that we can continue developing or testing new features without affecting the existing app. When I export the app, I first name the export and then decide what will happen when it is imported into a new environment. There is an Update option, and when I select it, I am presented with 2 choices: create the app as a new app, or update an existing app or flow in the environment. This decision is particularly important when managing different environments, such as development and production. By testing updates in the development environment, I can ensure everything works correctly without disrupting the live version. If the update is successful, I can then import it into the production environment, where it will seamlessly replace the older version, keeping the app up to date for all users. Additionally, there is an option to configure specific actions during the import, allowing for further customization of how the app integrates into the new environment. Once I have configured everything, I proceed with the export. For example, if I choose Create as New, the app will be saved as a new app in the target environment, allowing me to run both the old and new versions side by side if needed. The export process might take some time, depending on the app's complexity, but it ensures that the app is ready for use in a different environment with all the settings and configurations intact. You may see a warning that says, "Creating your package. Don't navigate away." The time it takes depends on the size of the app. Since this is a basic app, it is relatively quick. However, if it were a larger app, like a 6-screen app created from a template, the process would take longer. Once it is done, the download begins. If the download does not start automatically, I can click the link provided. The package is downloaded to my Downloads folder as a zip file. On the other side, if I select Apps within the Power Apps tool, I can look up at the toolbar and see a New App button for creating a new app. There is also an Import a Canvas app option, which I would use to import my zip file. Our next step is to publish this app to a shared workspace so we can collaborate and make it accessible to our colleagues. To illustrate, let us use my Calls List app. If I simply select it, the app opens in play mode. However, I might prefer to choose Edit instead, which takes me into the app's edit mode. Now, with the app open, if I have created the workflow, saved the app and shared it, the next step is to grab the web link or app ID from the details. My goal is to place the app in a simple, accessible location for my team to use whenever and wherever they need it. Teams is an excellent place to do this, or alternatively, I could add it as a web part on a SharePoint site. So, let's look at both options. To visualize this in a way that works best for our team, I will start by copying the web link. Next, I will go to my Alpha Project's SharePoint homepage and edit the page. In any section of the page, I can add a Power App using the Power App web part. When prompted for the app's web link or ID, I simply paste the link I copied and then allow access. Now, the app is displayed on the homepage of our SharePoint site, ready to be republished. Again, access is required, so anyone that I want to access the app needs to have access to this SharePoint site. I may find that most of the team works in Teams, and with that in mind, I would consider adding a link to the app there. I can add it to multiple places, but one location tends to work best. So, let us have a look on how we would add the link to Teams. I will go to the Skyline project team, navigate to the General channel, and add a tab to my team. I will add a Power Apps tab, which is dependent on the license. Once added, I can see a list of my apps, along with their icons and other options. This makes it easy to select the app. I can then decide whether to post a notification to the channel about the new tab, or I can deselect the box and maybe tell them about it in a meeting or a more detailed post. After saving, the app is now accessible directly within Teams. Another option within Teams is to display a SharePoint site page, which can include an app on the homepage, allowing it to be accessed through Teams. This flexibility means we have multiple ways to deliver the app to our team, depending on their needs. The key is understanding how users will interact with the app, whether it is easier for them to access it on a SharePoint site or through a tab in the correct channel within Teams. We might even create a specific channel just for this list. Now that we have covered all the steps, I will return to Power Apps. In Power Apps, we started by editing the SharePoint list to create a simple form for users to fill out, like the asset list I created. The goal was to make it accessible on mobile devices, which is a key consideration for many of the apps we create. Alternatively, we also have the option to create it as a tablet app. We briefly touched on some of the AI and Copilot options. Next, we integrated our Power App with Power Automate, using the user-friendly interface to automate notifications and add items to lists. The Power Platform works together to deliver the functionality we need from the app.
In today's webinar, we began by understanding the basics of Power Apps, including the differences between Canvas apps and model-driven apps. You then learned how to design and customize apps using the Power Apps interface, starting from SharePoint and templates. We explored how to connect these apps to various data sources like SharePoint, OneDrive, and Excel, and discussed best practices for creating intuitive, user-friendly interfaces. Finally, we covered how to add automation using Power Automate and the steps to publish your apps to shared workspaces in SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. With these skills, you're now equipped to start building and deploying your own Power Apps to enhance your workflows and productivity. Thank you for joining us today.